Today's video is going to be a little bit different, I think, than anything I've recorded on the YouTube channel to date. Typically, when you see me sitting in my studio, I have a certain topic that I've done an outline and some sort of a script that I work off of, and I try to hit those points because, you know, I have that topic and I want to get those points across, and hopefully when you get out into the field, you'll be able to use that information and hopefully take better photos for yourself. But today, I had this idea that I've been kind of kicking around, and my thought for this video is talk about the thought process that I have behind trying to capture a specific image. This is a little bit of a philosophy that I think that I have incorporated into my photography over the past 30 plus, 35 plus years that I've been doing bird and wildlife photography. You know, I've been teaching bird photography and nature photography for the Massachusetts Audubon Society now for over 25 years. And typically when I'm teaching these classes or workshops, or I'm in the field with folks that are participating, I like to try to have examples and or stories to relay to those people, and now to you, again, to hopefully help you with an understanding of how I think about my photography, and then maybe you can, again, take that into the field and hopefully become a better photographer yourself. So, the two examples that I want to talk about today are this Atlantic puffin that you see on the screen behind me, which I took on Grimsey Island in Iceland. If you've watched any of my YouTube videos from Grimsey Island, you'll have a little bit better understanding of kind of what I was doing on that island and some of the things that you can see and photograph there. And if you haven't, I would encourage you to go and take a look at that. With this particular bird, my thought was, after dinner one evening, I decided that I was going to go over to where the lighthouse area is along the cliff face there. If you've been to Grimsey Island, you know the area that I'm talking about. And again, if you watch my videos, you'll see some of that information. But anyway, I wanted to go over to that area because there's a lot of puffins along that cliff face. It's a really photogenic area. Lots of, not just puffins, but razorbills and murres and kittiwakes and so forth. So, but I specifically wanted to find a lone puffin on a rock, on a good-looking rock, some rock, you know, a rock that had some character to it. So that the rock had to be an interesting part of the overall composition and the final product that I was going to try to capture. And so I get over there after dinner, and I'm the only one there. And sure enough, within about, I don't know, 15 minutes or less, I find that puffin. And it's sitting on that rock. And I say to myself, this is what I've been looking for. And no sooner did I find that puffin sitting there, or in this case, standing there, I should say, I set up my tripod with my Canon 600mm version 3. It had a 1.4 teleconverter on it. I also had, that's on an R3 by the way, and had my second body, a second R3 with the Canon 100 to 500mm that I've got kind of slung over my shoulder. And the idea is that I'm going to line this bird up and I'm going to sit and wait and try to capture some sort of a photo that's more than just the bird just sitting there or standing there. And within a few minutes, that bird actually sat down on that rock and kind of got comfortable. And I'm sitting on the ground. I'm sitting low to the ground. And again, I have my tripod set up in front of me. And I'm lined up on the subject. And I've got the screen pulled out. Remember, we're dealing with mirrorless, so I don't have to look through the viewfinder. I can just look at the screen. And I can watch the screen as it's pointing at the bird. And with the animal eye tracking, that sensor is going to track the eye. So as I line up the shot, as the bird's head moves slightly, that eye tracking follows the eye of the bird, so it's always going to be in focus. And then I have a cable release in my hand, and as I look at the screen, I'm waiting for some sort of moment to happen, to capture something a little more interesting and a little more compelling to the viewer, to myself, in terms of what the image in my mind is. And I want something a little a little more exciting. If you watched, again, one of my videos on action photos, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for some action, as it were. I'm waiting for the bird to open up its mouth and its beak. I'm waiting for, a wing flap, just something just kind of a little bit out of the ordinary, again, other than the bird just sitting there. And I sat with that bird for almost 2 hours, just sitting there, very quiet, very patiently, waiting for whatever the moment or moments would be. And during that entire time, no other human was on that cliff face, including the group that I was with. Nobody else from the island came walking by, just myself and all of these puffins, razorbills, and other birds, nesting seabirds that are there, and this lone puffin that I am waiting for this moment. And I've got my remote in my hand, and sure enough, on a couple of occasions, something happens, and I'm able to hit the shutter and capture a couple of moments, and we'll take a look at a couple of those photos. If you look at this one here, the bird looks right down the barrel of my lens at me, and when I see that, this is a photo I'm quite often looking for, I start taking some photos. I'm ripping off, a whole bunch of images. We can shoot 30 frames a second, although I don't know if I was shooting 30 frames a second at that time, but needless to say, an R3 will take 30 frames a second. So that happens, and then no sooner does that happen, the bird is looking down the barrel of the lens, it opens up its mouth, and you see this next image here. And it happens very quickly, extremely quickly. And it's one of those things that if you are not paying attention in the moment, you will not capture that image. And so I am just constantly looking at, again, at the screen, at the LCD screen on the back of the camera that I have flipped out, and I'm monitoring that. I'm not looking through the viewfinder. And as you can see with the 600 and the 1.4 teleconverter, it's a fairly tight image, although I think there's enough overall space around the image where it's not claustrophobic. There's enough room to let the image kind of breathe, let the subject and all of the other elements of the photo, including the rock and the lichens and so forth, kind of be part of the overall composition. And that's what I'm after. And while I'm sitting there again it's almost 2 hours sitting with this bird, and I'm waiting for something more. I want more than just that. I want to just, try to capture something that's a little bit different, a little bit out of the ordinary. The one thing about doing this, and I do this with a lot of birds, where I have a bird kind of in the moment, and I sit and wait and wait and sit and wait, and I'm waiting for that decisive moment. As I'm sitting there waiting, one of the things that happens, even though I am really concentrating on the subject, over the course of an hour, hour and a half, almost 2 hours, depending on how much time you spend with the subject, you find yourself occasionally, your mind wanders a little bit. It just happens. And inevitably, when that happens, I've found over the years, that's when something interesting takes place, and you often will miss the shot that you've been waiting for. Thankfully for me on this one, I don't think that happened. And so as I was sitting there again, and I captured a couple of these images I just showed, another opportunity presented itself. I did not have my hand on my cable release. I had sat it in my lap, and I was just kind of looking at the bird at this point and the viewfinder kind of going back and forth. And again, remember, I have my second camera body with the Canon 100-500 basically right next to me. I got a shoulder strap, and it's right there. And as I look at the bird, I notice again that the bird is opening up its mouth. I think it's more of like a yawn than anything. I don't remember it vocalizing, although it could have been. And as that happened, I realized that I didn't want the shot with the Canon 600 millimeter with the 1.4. I mean, that's 840 millimeters. Again, it's a lot of lens. It was going to be a fairly tight shot. I wanted more of the overall image that I was looking at. And so I very quickly, as I could, grabbed the R3 with the 100-500, pulled it up, locked the focus on, and hit the shutter and captured this image. And this is the image, I think, ultimately, that really had me excited. And it's not that I didn't like the other photos that you saw. I think the other photos are quite nice. I think it's it's a nice experience to, again, to capture these images that you kind of have in your mind. But this image here, slightly wider shot, I don't have as much lens, I'm not as tight, gives you more of the overall environment, more context for the subject and its surroundings with, again, now with this rock, the lichen, the little bit of the vegetation that's there. That whole image to me tells a much more interesting story than the other photos. And again, it's not that I don't like the other photos. I do like the other photos. I just think this is a much more interesting photo overall. And when I've given my Iceland talk, which I have several coming up actually this fall, but when I've given this talk and I've told a similar version of the story, and I lead up to showing several photos, you know, I'll show this particular photo here. Let's take a look at this one here where the bird is sitting on the rock. It's a tight shot. It's kind of like teetering on the rock. It's kind of almost a whimsical photo. I like that photo as well. And then I go back and again I show the last photo I show with this whole story that I tell is this photo here again, and this whole wide shot, and again showing more of the environment, more of the context of the bird in its environment. The point of this particular story with this puffin is, if you find yourself in a position where you have a subject and it's cooperating to whatever extent wildlife can cooperate, just sit, be patient, take your time, let yourself just kind of become part of the whole moment that's happening with whatever the wildlife it is or the bird it is that you're photographing. And if you sit quietly and you sit patiently, I find that good things and good results often are what come to you as a photographer. And so quite often when I'm in the field, and if I'm teaching a workshop or when I'm talking to folks that are taking any number of the workshops or classes that I'm teaching, I think a lot of photographers have the tendency, and I think I was guilty of this certainly early on in my career, where if you're not getting the shot that you think you want at the moment, you're very quick to just, you know, pull up your stakes and kind of move on, or start to chase a bird over here and chase a bird over there. And while that might work sometimes, I found overall that that strategy doesn't work as well for me as this does. I would rather go into the field and take 1 or 2 great photos than 10 or 12 okay or good photos. I'd rather have a couple of great photos than, again, 10 or 12 okay photos. But that's just me. But I think most photographers would agree. So I would encourage you to get out in the field, find your subjects, sit with whatever the subject is, be patient, and wait for the shot. Wait for a great image to materialize in front of you and capture that image. And when that happens, that's some real magic. So that's today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my stories. Please hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. Take care, and remember, help protect wildlife and help protect wild places. Cheers. Let's take a look at a few more images.